Good afternoon. We'll call the Riverside County Transportation Commission Western Riverside County Programs and Projects Committee meeting on Monday, April 23rd, 2018 at 1:30. Call that to order. May we have roll call? Madam Clerk, do we have a quorum? We do.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next, Debbie Franklin, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're going to move on to the public comment section. Each speaker is limited to 3 consecutive minutes or less. Speakers may not yield their time to others without the consent of the chair, and the board should not take action or discuss matters raised during the public comment portion of the agenda. Do we have any public comments for non-agenda items?
No, sir.
Okay, so we will move on to approval of the minutes from March 26, 2018. We have a motion and a second. Any comments from the board? Okay. Go ahead and vote. And that was approved, 9-0. And we will move on to item 6, additions and revisions. Were there any additions or revisions?
No, sir.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We are moving right along. So item 7, this is congestion mitigation and air quality funding increase for Temecula Park and Ride Facility. This will be presented by Shirley Medina. Go ahead, Shirley.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. In January 2014, the Commission approved $1.3 million in federal congestion mitigation and air quality funds for a park and ride facility on La Paz Road in the city of Temecula. The city obligated the funds in December 2015. Work commenced on the project. However, due to a dispute with the contractor, the city found it necessary to suspend the project. Working with Caltrans, the city decided to rebid the project, and the low bid was still considerably higher than the original, which was due to rising construction costs as a result of the improved economy. The city has requested additional CMAQ funds to complete the project. Park and ride facilities are identified as transportation control measures in the Federal Transportation Improvement Program. TCMs and all CMAQ funded projects are air quality beneficial projects. Project level air quality assessments are required and are incorporated into the SCAG regional transportation model. If a TCM cannot be implemented, a substitution process for an equivalent air quality project would need to be initiated and ultimately approved by Federal Highways, EPA, and the South Coast Air Quality Management District. The city has kept us apprised and Caltrans apprised of the prior contractor issues and the results of the rebid. Staff recommends approval of an additional $607,281 in CMAQ funds in order to comply with the CCM implementation rules and fund this much-needed park and ride facility that will help alleviate congestion on the I-15. The city has also committed local funds in the amount of $653,000 towards this project, and therefore we're requesting to amend the existing agreement to reflect these updated amounts. This concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions? We have a motion. Do we have a second? Please vote. That's approved, 9-0. Thank you. Moving on to item number 8, and I would just remind you we do have several speaker cards already filled out. If you are here to speak on this item, please make sure to fill out the yellow card and please hand it to our clerk, and you will get your chance in a few minutes. This item 8 is the State Route 91 Corridor Operations Project and Traffic and Revenue Study Update and Request for various authorizations. This will be presented by Michael Bloomquist.
Good afternoon, Chairman Bergson and committee members. Today's presentation will briefly summarize the work performed since December to determine what additional improvements to the State Route 91 corridor may be warranted. The majority of the presentation is dedicated to providing staff recommendations on the following items: the I-15 northbound express lane entrance, as well as potential improvements to the general purpose lanes 91 westbound near the county line. Several contracts are being proposed to amend to accomplish this work, as well as a funding source to pay for it all. Lastly, I have recommendation regarding the necessary agency-to-agency agreements in order to implement the work. Over the last several months, staff and its consultants have analyzed corridor traffic both before and after the 91 project opening. An advanced traffic modeling technique called microsimulation was used to best understand the traffic in this complicated area. Through this work, we identified 91 corridor hotspots that continue to have lingering congestion at certain locations at certain times of the day. We've spent a number of months performing preliminary engineering work to create potential options to improve congestion. We have then analyzed those various options from several viewpoints, those being traffic improvements, toll revenue impacts, the cost, and the schedule to implement them. We established criteria to evaluate the options. We evaluated the options and are here today with those recommendations for the committee to consider. Regarding I-15 northbound express lane entrance, staff is recommending the full implementation of option 1. Option 1 extends the express lanes about 1 mile to the south from its current location to a location south of Ontario Avenue. So why option 1? Well, it reduces the impact to the general purpose lanes by building more capacity in the express lanes to prevent cars from queuing and extending out of the express lanes. There's no impact to the I-15 express lanes project that's currently under construction with this option 1 as opposed to the other I-15 option 2. Further, our traffic and revenue consultant Stantec has estimated that the impact to toll revenue would be negligible if this improvement was implemented. The $284,000 cost and the 6 months to implement are reasonable in light of the potential improvement that could result. The cost includes the engineering work to create new striping and signing plans and potential traffic handling plans. The cost also includes the actual striping and signing work and construction management and inspection. Next, staff is recommending that the State Route 91 general purpose lanes in the westbound direction near the county line be further improved by the full implementation of option 3. Option 3 would reconfigure the way traffic enters and exits the express lanes by restriping and signing this area to result in a continuous weave lane. Staff's recommending option 3 because it improves the general purpose lane traffic operations. General purpose lane speeds improved by approximately 6 miles per hour on average between I-15 and the county line, about 7.5 miles. The travel time's also faster, and about 1,200 more vehicles an hour could move through the corridor. Based on the analysis performed to date, it's anticipated that the impact to toll revenue would be acceptable. The $386,000 cost and the 9 months to implement are reasonable in light of the potential improvements that could result. The cost includes all phases of work: design, construction, construction management, etc. Minimal environmental impacts, primarily striping changes. One of the requests from the local community is to turn off entirely or significantly change the timing of the existing ramp meter at the Green River Road westbound on-ramp. Staff is recommending that we maintain this existing ramp metering at the Green River Road westbound on-ramp. The traffic impacts of turning off the ramp meters were analyzed under existing conditions out there today. We did find that some travel benefits for Green River Road users would result. For example, for the period from 6:15 to 6:30 a.m. in the morning during the peak period, 4-minute travel time savings were estimated from 29 minutes to 25 minutes. Further, 2 mile per hour speed improvement was estimated from 8 to 10 mile per hour. There would likely be minimal change to 91 corridor operations as a result of turning off the meter. Additionally, safety concerns exist with the ramp meter, merging from 3 lanes to 2 lanes to 1 lane on the ramp, without the discipline of a ramp timing metering traffic and helping for an orderly lane merge. Caltrans is the operator of the state highway system, including operations and timing of ramp meters. Caltrans expressed the same safety concerns and was not initially inclined to consider turning off the ramp meter or changing the timing in a significant way. Given the minimal benefits to traffic operations and the noted safety concerns, staff is not recommending that the Green River on-ramp meter be turned off or timing changed substantially. Staff and consultants conducted early discussions with Caltrans to vet the various options and determine which options had fatal flaws preventing future Caltrans approval. Caltrans expressed significant concerns with options 4, 5, and 6 due to the following issues: narrower 11-foot wide lanes and 2-foot wide shoulders. This would be the outside shoulder, a 2-foot wide shoulder. There'd be limited storm drain capacity in the outside lane where vehicles would be traveling, so water inundating that lane with high-speed vehicles. Inadequate emergency vehicle access in that outside area, as well as inadequate vehicle breakdown areas. And then also, these were not limited to a single point location. These would be extended several miles in this area between Green River Road and State Route 241. As a result, options 4, 5, and 6 as currently conceived will not be approved for implementation given both the magnitude and extent of non-standard features that present safety and/or traffic operations problems. Caltrans was also consulted on the ramp metering concept mentioned previously and were not in favor of turning off the ramp meter or modifying the timing in a significant way. Excuse me. A modification of option 4 that would more closely meet Caltrans requirements, resulting in wider lanes and shoulders, better emergency vehicle access, and traffic operations, was conceived from the discussions. This option would result in less non-standard features, an estimated 7-foot widening of pavement and reconstructing existing shoulder, and it resulted in a project cost of approximately $30 to $50 million. Staff is recommending implementing a modified option 4 in 2 separate steps. First, immediately begin scoping, environmental studies, and final design work for modified option 4. Second, after the updated 91 traffic and revenue study is completed in fall of 2018, return to the Commission with a recommendation for construction of modified option 4. I have additional information on the traffic and revenue study work later in the presentation. Also note that project scoping, environmental studies, and final design services would proceed concurrent with the update to the 91 traffic and revenue study. Staff's proposing this approach to accelerate completion of the modified option 4 improvements by as much as 6 months. However, it's also possible that a future staff recommendation could be to not construct modified option 4 improvements, resulting in the loss of these project development costs. So why implement option 4? Based on the potential for traffic operations improvement, the estimated implementation costs, the schedule to implement, Caltrans consultation input, and other known issues, staff recommends to proceed to implement a modified option 4. A modified option 4 improves general purpose lane traffic operations. For example, general purpose lane speeds improved by 7 miles per hour on average between I-15 and the county line, from 16 to 23 miles per hour. The travel time is faster, as well as about 1,300 more vehicles per hour can move through the corridor. Modified option 4 has comparable benefits to option 5, but with less impacts. Modified option 4 has less impact to the express lanes than does option 6. The 2-step implementation is proposed to accelerate environmental study and final design work. Step 1 cost is $3.0 million. For project scoping, environmental studies, and final design. Step 1 schedules about 18 months from formal commission approval, if that should occur here in May. Step 2 would be to return in the fall 2018 with a construction recommendation, again, concurrent with the traffic and revenue study results. Factors for that recommendation would include toll revenue impact, the construction cost, the schedule, and the fund source for the construction of option 4 modified. At the February Commission meeting and the past 2 committee meetings, staff heard the desire to get improvements in place as quickly as possible. This need for speed has shaped the 2-step implementation approach just described. Short-term improvements, namely I-15 option 1 and 91 westbound option 3, begin immediately with full implementation. Midterm improvements, a modified option 4, would start immediately with a future decision to construct later this year. Staff is also asking for more procurement and contracting authority to allow more flexibility to deliver the accelerated implementation recommendations. The proposed approach presented today is not the Commission's typical project development process where sequential board decisions and actions are presented for approval when ready. The existence of a variety of contracts for both the 91 project, which was just received final acceptance from the board last month, as well as the I-15 Express Lanes project, provide a unique opportunity to amend contracts, avoiding the time for competitive procurements. This time savings allows for the acceleration of these improvements. Staff is proposing an accelerated approach for your consideration and decision. If the committee chooses not to proceed in this accelerated fashion, then staff proposes the committee approve certain items today with the need to return to future meetings with additional recommendations, decisions, and actions. Therefore, staff's recommending amendments to 3 professional services contracts. Staff proposes to use Parsons for services including environmental final design, construction inspection, construction management, and other project development services. Staff augmentation for Bechtel at $300,000 and the traffic and revenue study update at $500,000. On the TNR study, the toll revenue impacts provided during this current effort are considered level 1 in terms of accuracy and comprehensiveness. Staff proposes to update the State Route 91 traffic and revenue study originally prepared in 2012. This was the study it was considered level 3 in terms of accuracy and comprehensiveness, and it was the basis for the toll revenues on which the Commission financed the 91 project. The proposed update will better inform the Commission of toll revenue impacts of future corridor improvements. The update would account for actual 91 express lanes opening data over the last 12-13 months. It would reflect current socioeconomic data, employment, housing growth, household formation, future projects to be constructed in the region like the 241-91 connector at the county line, and other factors. The update is estimated to cost $500,000 and take about 5 months to complete. Staff proposes this work proceed concurrent with the develop of the corridor improvements, including modified option 4. Staff proposes the Commission provide the Executive Director the flexibility and authority to either amend the existing Skanska Ames design-build contract via contract change order. Skanska Ames is the design-build contractor for our I-15 Express Lanes project, or to competitively bid and execute construction contracts to the lowest responsive bidder. This authority is being sought for the construction of both the I-15 northbound option 1 work as well as the State Route 91 westbound option 3 work. Staff acknowledges that a non-competitive procurement through a change order will save time relative to a competitive procurement. Staff estimates this could be around 4 to 6 months of time difference. Additionally, staff acknowledges the benefit to seeking competitive bids for this work, expecting we would potentially see lower construction costs through competitive bidding. It's difficult to estimate the cost difference between competitively bid work versus a negotiated change order. We used a 20% difference in our estimate, which reflects on the slide here. Therefore, staff recommends the Executive Director be authorized to either amend existing construction contracts or conduct competitive construction contract procurements to perform this work. Staff recommendation to use 91 express lane surplus toll revenue as the funding source for all of the professional services and construction detailed in this staff report and presentation. The current estimate for all the authorization staff is seeking is about $4.47 million. This does not include the cost of future construction of the 91 westbound option 4 modified. Surplus toll revenue is the toll revenue remaining after all other financial obligations required as part of the 91 Express Lane financing have been met. These financial obligations include annual operations and maintenance, debt service, reserve funds, and other obligations. The Commission's authorizing legislation, Senate Bill 1316, requires that all surplus revenue generated within the corridor be spent for transportation improvements within the corridor. So this expenditure is both allowable and appropriate. No Measure A funds would be needed. Staff's current estimate of surplus toll revenues from the day we opened, March 20th, 2017, through the end of this fiscal year, June 30th, 2018, which is about 15 months of operation, is approximately $24 million. Staff plans to return in fall of 2018 with a more comprehensive surplus revenue plan. Staff also proposes a budget adjustment to pay $1 million of estimated fiscal year 2017-28 costs related to this 91 corridor operations project and 91 Express Lanes traffic and revenue study work, subject to approval of staff's recommendations. New agreements or amendments to existing agency-to-agency agreements will be needed for various project development work phases, including environmental, final design, construction, and possibly others. It is very likely agreements with Caltrans will be needed. It's not yet known if option 4 modified will impact OCTA or potentially require some type of agreement there. Similarly, it's not yet known if an amendment to an existing California Highway Patrol enforcement agreement would be necessary. Therefore, staff proposes authority for the chair or executive director to execute all necessary agency agreements associated with this 91 corridor operations project. Staff has acknowledged some ongoing policy issues for future board consideration. The type of future improvements to the 91 corridor the Commission wants to make is one consideration. Also, the timing to make those improvements, both midterm and long-term. Should the committee and commission approve the update to the traffic and revenue study, the results of the future update will inform the commission as to the revenue impacts of the larger scale improvements contemplated. Related, allocating future 91 surplus revenue to larger scale improvements would also be a consideration. Staff needs to work closely with Caltrans, particularly to get timely approvals for environmental clearances and final design. Motorist safety is top priority. Changes in the corridor will be reviewed once operational to review the experience for all users in the 91 corridor. It is possible staff could return with additional recommendations in the future based on the actual results experienced. Lastly, the proximity of the I-15 express lanes and its overlap with the 91 express lanes requires consideration to have no impact to the design and construction of that project or its future operation. Thank you. That concludes my presentation. Staff and consultants are ready for questions.
So at the moment, we'll open it up to the commission for questions, just staff questions. And the first in the queue is Menifee.
Yes, we saw several pictures over the last couple of meetings regarding traffic impact on the surface streets along Green River. What do you anticipate the improvements will be by making these particular changes, if any?
The option, I-15 northbound option 1 improvements won't have any material impacts to Green River, which is about 5 miles west. Option 3, State Route 91, westbound option 3, that the weight on Green River Road, it won't significantly change with the implementation of option 3. Option 4 modified is the option that probably has the greatest potential for that. And so the first step of that recommendation was to proceed with scoping and final design of option 4 modified.
Thank you.
Okay, next, Norco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On these key issues you have over here on option 2, 4, 4B, 5, and 6, it said you make the lanes more narrow. How much will that narrow them up?
Generally be from the standard, which is 12 feet wide, to 11-foot wide lanes. And the shoulders in this, for example, a right shoulder on a freeway would typically be 10 feet wide. In this scenario, we're talking about 2 foot wide.
Making a 2 foot wide shoulder.
Yeah, for option 1, the options 4, 5, and 6 actually result in freeway widening. So we would actually widen the freeway to have more standard lanes and more standard shoulders. They still wouldn't be full standard, but they'd be not 11-foot lanes and a 2-foot shoulder. So it depends on the option and whether the option includes widening of the freeway or not. If we widen the freeway, there'll be wider shoulders and lanes.
Okay, well, when you cut down the size of those lanes, isn't that kind of dangerous with all the semis that go down through there?
Well, there's reasons,
narrow
there's
anyway.
standards, and over the years, Caltrans and other jurisdictions have landed on a 12-foot wide lane as being that sweet spot of economics and safety. Non-standard or lesser lane widths are allowed by Caltrans. That requires a special approval. They do grant those approvals. They don't categorize them as not being safe, but they're also not standard. It's preferable to have a full standard lane width.
Right, but because now if they're 12, there's still, sometimes it gets a little tight in there when those semis get side by side and
Correct.
everything.
Usually the last lane, the number 1 lane or the lane closest to the right where the trucks travel the most is usually the last lane to be minimized. We'd like to keep that at 12 foot for the reason you're citing. Big rigs can use that lane and they need the width.
Right, and you said the storm drain capacity, if you narrow those lanes down and everything, does that mean that it'll be more dangerous when it rains because more water will be standing on that lane
Yes.
than normal?
Yes, that's the concerns both staff and Caltrans have with running traffic in that outside lane on a freeway, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next, Corona?
Well, this proposal is rather aggressive, but since I've been a very strong vocal participant in all this, I certainly have to support whatever measures we can. It's very revved up, quick, and I appreciate that since that's what you've been asked to do. I do want to go back and just clarify a couple things. First off, I do want it really clear, surplus toll. So that was the first question I had asked Ms. Mayor is, how are we funding this? And it needs to be very clear that it is the surplus toll. Secondly, when you said that motorist safety is the top priority, when we were constructing and we kept getting, there were so many accidents because of construction. Well, accidents are continuing to happen. Are they reduced significantly? Are they reduced at all? Like this morning, another accident. There was an accident last week, backs up, it puts all the cars onto the streets in Corona. So we still have those issues. So I'm just curious, since, you know, every action has a reaction, as we were talking, and is this going to have a challenge with increasing accidents? Have they increased? Have they reduced? Have we even watched for that?
I don't have accident data with me here today. It's something we could get back to the committee on in terms of accident data. Some of the recommendations, for example, the Green River on-ramp metering, one of our concerns is the safety of that merge without the discipline of the meter. The option 3, restriping, which staff's recommending for full implementation. Frankly, there is some risk. A change situation out there doesn't involve or result in an improved situation, but it could be the same situation, could improve. We think it does improve, which is why we're recommending it. But as we've seen, driver behavior is not always predictable. It can sometimes be irrational, especially when there's a change to the corridor. It takes some time often to adjust to that new situation. So that's why the recommendation is we will be monitoring any implementation to see what it does to safety. And that's why it's listed as the top priority.
And so I just also want to reiterate, since it was a top request is having the ramp meters turned off, that was a Caltrans decision not to turn off the ramp meters?
Caltrans is ultimately the owner and operator of the state highway system, and they'll ultimately make that decision. Both staff and Caltrans are recommending not to do that.
Okay, well, that's a very important thing. I wanted to make sure we put it. And so it actually, with the new study for the traffic and revenue, would actually be a good thing to do an update. Is that standard after a project's been completed, or is this because of some of the challenges afterward?
We wouldn't be doing this just because of the challenges we've had. It's been now 6 years since the original study was performed. A lot has changed in the corridor, assumption-wise. And whether it's for our lenders, whether it's for this situation, entertaining new improvements in the corridor, there's a number of reasons why we think it makes good sense to update that study.
Okay. Yeah, when we make these changes, I'm hoping, my ultimate goal is to improve the streets in Corona. I know that that's not the project of this, but the unintended consequences were that the streets in Corona were so congested because of the flow on the freeway. I'm just hoping that we don't have the challenge now back on the freeway. So let's just hope that this is going to be at least the beginnings of some kind of change in driver behavior. And I'm really curious on the accidents, because there seems to be quite a few, and they're being rather significant, because you said they happened from Green River to the 241 seems to be the spot, and that's the same spot during construction they were happening.
That's one of the reasons why any of the options that have no area for vehicle breakdown or emergency access, that's precisely where it's needed the most, because there's no options in the corridor except for the 91.
Okay, thank you.
Menifee?
Thank you. Question on the work to be done on the eastbound. There was an amount of $284,000 for that restriping project, basically. How will that be impacting traffic during, it's a 5-month period, you said, to do that project? What's going to help to mitigate the traffic going that direction during that time?
Sure, the 91 westbound option 3 restriping. For one, we would look to night work, which is what we did towards the very end of the 91 project when we reconfigured some of the county line areas. So night work is one. 2, we also have the ability every 3 weeks on Sunday mornings we close for maintenance, the 91 express lanes, giving us another opportunity to do key work in the express lanes or right there. So we would look to do that. We're very inclined to minimize impacts, both express lanes and general purpose lanes.
Okay, thank you.
And next Banning?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to ask if, as whatever changes are made, we can make sure that we have plenty of signage out there for people that are traveling through both directions to be aware that there are changes coming up, because that seems to be an issue too. That, you know, they're used to going one way, something changes, and then people aren't ready for it. But if we can just plan to have plenty of signage for people that are coming, not from Corona, but outside the area also.
Noted, thanks.
Thank you.
Any other commission members want to have a comment for staff? Okay, I have one comment or question, and that is, as far as Green River and the metering, what impact would these changes have, in essence, on that backlog of queuing that goes for blocks and blocks and blocks on Green River? If the metering isn't changed, then what exactly is going to, what change is there going to be to the cars trying to get on at Green River?
Potentially modified option 4 would provide them, you know, some relief for that Green River Road queuing, and that's why we want to get started on final design and environmental scoping now and come back with a construction recommendation. That was, of the 3 options on 91 in that area, that has the potential, the most potential to improve that situation.
But that's a ways off as far
It
as
is.
implementation, at least. But
It is.
Okay. Okay. All right. Then we will move on to public comments. The first speaker, and remember, you'll have 3 minutes, and at the end of your 3 minutes, the microphone automatically shuts off, so we won't be able to hear you after that. So try to keep it within the 3-minute period. The first speaker is Ned Ibrahim?
Chairman, Commissioners, good afternoon. My name is Ned Ibrahim. I'm a civil engineer with 24 years of proud public service, working for the city of Corona. Retired in 2008. I do want to commend Ann and staff for moving this forward. The options that staff is recommending for the I-15, option 1 is a no-brainer. I think that should have a positive immediate impact after the work is done. I think the option 3 on the 91 freeway is a good start. I think it would help the freeway. I think it would help the freeway substantially. And I'm basing this based on the figures and the numbers that RCTC consultant and staff produced. So I do think option 3 needs to be supported with reservation, from my perspective, on what Caltrans feedback is on the not turn off the meter as much as reprogramming it. So we have reservation on that, I do. Option 4 on the 91, I think, is the option that I was thinking that needs to be done, and obviously it's a lot more complicated than what I see from outside. So I gotta trust staff and their consultants to produce based on the facts that they see in consultation with Caltrans and the experts, their expert consultants. I see the complication that will need time to get done, but I hope it'll be pushed as fast as possible. I hope it's not an if, but a win for option 4. So I'm standing here with a really measured sense of support for what RCTC is doing. I don't envy you for the challenge you have. What I do have passion for is the people that I spoke with for over 20 some years at Green River, Foothill Corridor through Corona, promising relief if they just been patient. And we told them years ago, before I left, that 91 is the last piece, and hallelujah, everything will be fixed. And so it is a personal passion to me, and I'm going to stay with it as long as it takes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. The next speaker is West Speaka? West Speak. Speak? West Speak.
Thank you. My name is Wes Speak. I'm a resident of Corona and a member of the Greater Corona Traffic Alliance. I'm also a candidate for Corona's 5th District. First, a thank you for being responsive to the residents' concern. Several members of the public expressed a concern regarding not seeing presentations prior to the meeting, so we could prepare responses. And we were very pleased to see that the presentation, at least the big pieces of it, were in the agenda and able for us to digest and be able to talk about today. So I appreciate that. I want to express my support and ardent support for the proposed fixes in option 1 for the northbound 15. I think it's, you guys moved very quickly, very excited about how that moved forward. This fix will improve the lives of Corona and Temescal Valley residents and the traveling public, additionally helping keep commuters off the streets of Temescal Valley and Corona. I please hope that you guys will find an opportunity to vote for that today. As pleased as I am with how quickly we moved on the northbound 15, I am a little frustrated with how we're moving on option 4. I know it's complicated and there's more things to it, but I'd really like to see ways, especially I guess in the fall, we'll see opportunities for us to move that forward at a quicker pace, because I do think that area of town has been impacted for so long. I also did notice in the presentation that there's $3.2 million worth of direct awards to Parsons, Bechtel, Skanska, and Stantec, but there's no details on exactly what they're doing or a timeline. So I'd like to see kind of some detail there so we can have an idea of how that money is being spent and how fast. I know some members of the public had asked me, well, how fast can you spend $3 million? And I'm a consultant, I can spend $3 million pretty fast. So I want to make sure that we're at least addressing the things that we'd like to see done. But lastly, and most importantly, any fix that does not modify the Green River ramp to substantially increase the number of cars that can access the freeway will do nothing for residents of Corona. The thousands of commuters that use Green River, Foothill, and I call it an expressway because it is an expressway now, those people will end up traveling again through the streets of Corona every week. I want you to feel the frustration, the rage of residents of Corona that currently wait in queues that last up to 40 minutes. I think you guys have heard about that last few meetings. I understand that RCTC doesn't control the ramp meters, and the Greater Corona Traffic Alliance will continue to pursue different avenues with Caltrans District 8. However, incorporating an alternative design that allows more throughput must happen, whether it's 3 lanes to 2 or some additional widening. There needs to be some way of emptying that queue. Otherwise, this does nothing for the residents of Corona. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments as well. And the next speaker is Karen Alexander.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for working with us. Associated with the Greater Corona Traffic Alliance. I'm a Corona resident for 33 years. We live on the west end of town, so we're adjacent to Green River, and we're kind of in the thick of it, if you will. Our family is very invested in the community, so we appreciate the time. I wanted to say that I've also had worked for Corona PD for almost 30 years as a crime analyst. So stats is an integral part of what I did. So I'm glad that stats were brought up because I put in a public disclosure request for Corona apparatus, police and fire, and how they respond to traffic collisions, both on city streets and on the freeway. First of all, let's start with Corona resources. And this would be police responses to city streets and immediate mutual aid. And I think it's relevant because those streets are backed up with traffic. Not only, this is just overall, and it's not just during commute traffic. Also, fire responding to injury accidents on the freeway and mutual aids, but it's also close proximity, so I think it's relevant. So 2013, this is for the police department, on city streets and adjacent streets in the county, Coronita area, et cetera. If needed. 2013 was 1895. That was traffic collisions, either non-injury or injury. 2014 was 2790. 2015 was 3236. 2016 was 3624. So you can see, and then 2017 was 3171. So you can see quite a bit of an increase for police. That was a 67% increase. For fire department, starting off at 2013, they had 574 responses on city streets, 875, 957, 1055, and last year was 1,111. So fire department had 76% increase over 2013. For 2018, Corona Police Department had 1,189 accident calls for service. Now, that's only 3.5 months as of this morning, but if you project that out for 2018, that's going to come up conservatively to about 4,500 calls for service, 137% increase. Fire department, and I see I have 25 seconds, fire department increased 127%. For fire department just going on the freeway, 2013 was 48, 2014 was 51, 42, 51, but this year, last year was 71. You project that out and it's 58% increase for Code 3 responses. Thank you.
And thank you. We appreciate your comments as well. The next speaker is Joyce Miller. Hopefully I didn't destroy that too much. Hold on a second. This timer hasn't started. There you go.
Hi, my name is Joyce Millay, and I wanted to address the board and about the traffic in Corona. And I appreciate all the work that you have put into this, and I know that your intention was to make improvements. However, there have been a lot of unintended consequences that have negatively affected our community. The traffic on Green River, Border, Surface Club, and even Lincoln are significantly higher. I live along the Green River foothill. Now it connects, and people are getting off the freeway at Green River to connect to the 15. They are driving through the neighborhood streets. They are running stop signs, stop lights. We live about 4 miles from Green River. It takes us approximately 45 minutes to get to the entrance to the freeway. I know that the plans that have been submitted are well thought out and aggressive. We need an aggressive plan, and we need support in our community to make it livable. People are feeling anxious behind the wheel. The striping on the freeway is very difficult. There's only one way to get off in Corona from the fast track, and the way it's marked is very confusing for many people. I would encourage you to please act on this as much as possible. I know your heart is in the right place, but families are being impacted. Parents can't get home to their children. They can't help with homework. They can't go to sporting events on time. Or they do, they're so stressed out, the whole family's upset. We need your assistance in this matter, and we really appreciate what you do and hope that you can help us as soon as possible. Thank you.
And thank you. Next speaker is Amy Kinney.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Amy Kinney, and I am a resident of Temescal Valley, and you've seen me here before. What I wanted to say today, besides my gratitude for everybody that's worked hard, is to remind you that we did not just get here by chance. There was a lot of work that got us to this point today on RCTC staff, some of the commissioners, and the citizens. We've been working pretty hard to get to an opportunity where you can make a decision to make improvements. And I really hope that all of you are able to support that and know that you're not necessarily going to have multiple opportunities. I feel like this is our time. We're kind of at the tipping point where we're going to decide, do we want to get these fixed, or do we just want to say, we're not going to spend that funds or the time or whatever. I support the 15 North, obviously. That's a no-brainer. I think everybody would be happy to see that improvement. And the 91, whatever we can do, we need to keep moving forward. When I was on the 91 Freeway Citizens Task Force, I started looking at the accidents. And it's hard for a citizen like me to get some of the data from the CHP, but I was able to go on to the CHP website and pull off accidents within the city of Corona on the 91 freeway. So that would have been from the Orange County border to McKinley, and extrapolate from there what the rate increase was. Before construction began to during construction, their accident rates was 86% increase when I was looking at it back then. So I think that we need to keep moving forward, and I would ask for more data. $30 to $50 million. I saw that number, and it might be a big number where people don't want to spend that. But I think that you need to look at some of the other besides people just being frustrated, people are being impacted with, and the safety is a real issue as well. So thank you for all your time on all of this, and let's hopefully we can make something good happen. Thanks.
And thank you as well. Our next speaker, Jim Steiner.
Good afternoon, Jim Steiner, City of Corona. Last month I spoke to you about my experiences that I have had over my 30-year career as a firefighter, responding to emergencies along the corridor along Green River. in the Sierra del Oro area. And I expressed to you how challenging that had been for all of our firefighters and ambulance EMS personnel and our police officers to get to the incidents quickly. It's very difficult. I was pleased the next day I did get a call from Aaron Hake asking, directed by you, Ms. Mayor, to just follow up with me, get some more questions answered, clarify some of my comments. And I appreciate that. I felt like that you're demonstrating that you cared and that you're going to listen to all sides of the story, whether you agree with me or not. Moving forward, as you look at these different options, I really want you to consider the emergency response aspect of our first responders. And we all know there's a lot of accidents on the freeways in the immediate area, as Ms. Alexander said, but we also have to be able to get to those quickly. Today was just brutal, another brutal day in Green River area. And accidents, I just can't imagine the struggles that the firefighters had this morning getting all these emergencies. And they really had to utilize all the skills they had to probably figure that out. I think it's important I use this analogy a lot, but the 91 freeway is like an artery in our body. And as the pressure builds up in our arteries, it bursts out. It finds a weak spot, bursts out, we have an aneurysm, and we usually die. Well, it's similar with the 91. The pressure just builds up so great. They find the weak spots and they just spill out all over our Corona roads. And I feel like I'm watching our community just slowly die from a quality of life standpoint. And I think with your leadership and with input from citizens, that we can find that right medication, that right dose, the right solution to make immediate improvements while you work on your long-term solutions. So I'll be sticking around afterwards if any of you want to talk more privately about my responses over the years and the challenges I've faced. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate that. And Jen. Okay, next speaker, Stanley Hill.
Hello, my name's Stanley Hill. I wanted to give you a little background. I got a BS and an MS in engineering, and so I do understand how projects evolve and how you have to continue to revisit the projects over the life of these major changes. And what I wanted to talk to you today about is, and I have up on screen, was I was coming back from the gym this morning and I went approximately 1.5 miles. And it took me 35 minutes. So if you calculate, that turns out to be about 2.6 miles per hour, which isn't very fast, obviously. And if I look over to my right, I can look onto the freeway, and the freeway is just as bad. There are just as many cars that are just stopped. And so my point that I want to make today is that if you multiply my cost of what it cost me by gas, by that idling and just sitting there waiting, by the number of cars that are going through the corridor, you'll come up with something close to $120,000 of, wasted gas. And that doesn't account for the intangibles, that's the stress that's caused on the people that are driving, the environment. It doesn't account for any of those things. And today I want to ask you, I would like to see you thinking a little bit more out of the box. I want to use that term, out of the box, because what I would like to see is, since that's a pinch point, I would like to see us maybe test the theory about going in and opening up the toll roads to regular lanes for a period of time at specific locations at specific times. I think your staff could do a model and put a model together, and you could look at how that would impact the cost and the flow of traffic. So that's basically what I want to say today. Is I hope you'll consider that as something that you'll look at in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Stanley. Next speaker is Dale Plung.
Hello, my name's Dale Plung, and I live at the epicenter there at Surface Club Drive. It sounds like we're heading in the right direction, trying to fix a very serious problem. The quality of life sucks in this area. This morning I got up. I could hit a golf ball from my house to the McDonald's at Surface Club. I took Waze and asked driving time to get to the train station. It's less than half a mile the other side of the freeway. It was 1 hour and 3 minutes. I put Brandon's restaurant, which is at Green River. It told me it'd be 57 minutes to go 2 miles. So I appreciate the fact that you guys are going to do something to attempt change, because it's totally unbearable now. The traffic, do you see the pictures there that I'm showing again? It's not tolerable. It's not livable. It's not right. At the last meeting we had, Ann ended up the meeting saying you can't build out of this. We have to live with this. You can't fix it. I spent 3 hours yesterday on YouTube looking at RCTC videos, looking at city council meetings in Corona, looking at Board of Supervisors meetings, looking at City of Anaheim videos. Some of those are from 2011. Some are 2016 and 17. And the comments by you and others were like this. These improvements that we're going to make are going to create all kinds of opportunities and fill a number of dreams and aspirations. That was Karen. Comments like we're going to reduce congestion. That didn't happen. We're going to get people home earlier from work. That didn't happen. We're going to give people more time with their families. Didn't happen. Somebody said your freeways are going to reduce our costs with daycare centers because we're going to be able to commute quicker. That didn't happen. I sure hope with these changes that you're going to approve that it makes your promises and commitments a little more of a reality than what we're living through today.
Thank you, sir. And the next speaker, Michelle Wentworth.
Good afternoon. I'm Michelle Wentworth. I want to thank the staff for their diligent work that we've seen so far. It's a valuable key asset to the community and the residents of Corona and Temescal Valley to be able to engage with you today in positive and constructive ways. And I want to thank my fellow residents and citizens that have taken the time out of their day today, taken off work and taken time to prepare and look at everything to come here and speak to you from their hearts. I am encouraged to see the progress we've made so far with RCTC, the Commission with option 1 for the 15 and option 3 for the 91. It's good news, but I hope that you can expedite the improvements. And when I began with the Greater Corona Traffic Alliance, I did so because there was a disconnect between traffic conditions on the ground and the residents' ability to communicate effectively to the powers that be during the construction of the 91. 4 years ago, the Greater Corona Traffic Alliance's main concerns were Green River. 2,700 cars per hour arriving, about half get in. It's still our main concern. My main concern is with option 3. So I asked the Commission to refer to the letter that GCTA sent you with our recommendations for option 1. It's got a lot of good information in it. And the Greater Corona Traffic Alliance will support options that help the citizens at Green River Ramp, because half of them are being denied entrance. And I hope that the committee can explore how they are going to help our residents at Green River. Can we go to the ultimate build? That's my question after watching this. What's the cost difference between just going to the ultimate build and option 4? Is it possible to use SB1 money for this? This seems like a great project where you all might want to direct that money and create that project for this corridor, that we just go straight to the build, because obviously changing the ramp meter, we can reprogram it, we can't turn it off. It makes little difference if we don't have the lane for the traffic throughput. That's the key here. That was deferred. It's still there. I support anything that's going to help our residents in that manner, and I hope that the Commission considers that too, especially after all the heartfelt comments that you heard and how hard we've worked to come together to be constructive, proactive, and really interact with you so you can see what's going on in our community. Thank you.
And thank you. Next speaker is John Donaldson.
I'm John Donaldson. I live in the city of Corona for the past 37 years, and as you well imagine, we've seen an immense amount of changes in western Riverside County in those 37 years, leading us to this discussion today, among other places. And I'd certainly want to believe that the staff, which has put together some interesting presentations today, is factoring in what the next 10, 20, 30 years is going to look like, because we have this $1 billion improvement out there and we're running behind. Quite frankly, I think many of the people expressed the situation here, all that money spent and the traffic time is even worse than it was before we started. And that isn't because the freeway design was bad, it was just that we're losing the race. More development in western Riverside County and San Bernardino County, it's exploding. People want to live here, but the freeways haven't kept up. We're losing a race for transportation. And this commission and this staff have to just take a better look at what's happening throughout the western Riverside County and San Bernardino County and factor in that in their future planning. I mean, we cannot build the roads fast enough, apparently, because it takes a long time to come through. We talked 18 months to get this project going and so forth. We got to do it faster. We got to have more alternatives. I mean, you all have to reach out to other money sources. I can't do it. We want to raise the sales tax in my city. I don't like that. So we have to find other sources. But wait, we have electric cars. They're not paying any gas tax. Oh, what's that going to mean? So we're going to put more of those on. We're building warehouses in the Inland Empire faster than we're building houses. What comes to warehouses? Tractor trailers out of the port. support. All of this is making the job of this council exceptionally challenging. And I think you have to find ways, as Stan said earlier, to think outside the box a little bit and find other ways to adapt to this massive increase in transportation we're trying to deal with. And widening an on-ramp on the freeway is not going to address the problem that's going to be here by the time the widening occurs. So please take some time, get the staff to look further ahead, get more money, whatever you can do to get things, make it a little better for our residents and businesses in this community. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. And the last speaker card I have is Matt Woody.
Thank you, Commission. I appreciate everybody coming here, listening to the staff. Made a great report. Some fantastic options, I think, to help alleviate the situation in Green River in the short term and in the longer term. I am a resident of Corona. I live in the Green River area. I was here last month speaking. I'm also a candidate for the U.S. Congress there in that district. And one of the things I spoke about last month was accountability, and it's something I want to revisit here today. I think what you hear from the residents who are speaking today is the people in that area, and not just in that area, but from the other cities, the people driving through Corona from Lake Elsinore, Murrieta, Menifee, Riverside, coming from the north, Norco, Eastvale, everybody. Feels the same pain. They sit on the freeways, they come in on the surface streets, and then the residents who did nothing other than just live there have to deal with that as well. So those residents want some accountability. They want some fixes. I'm glad to see that the fixes are coming, and I would encourage you as far as the on-ramp meter to take a strong stand there. Caltrans is saying no, but if we have a united voice within RCTC to push the issue with Caltrans, maybe there's another alternative. Maybe there's a way to look outside the box, as others have been referring to. So I would encourage that not just taking no for an answer. All of you got to where you are, I'm sure, by not taking no and trying to prove people wrong who doubt that something can't be done. So back to accountability. Last month, after those comments, there was, a very heartfelt statement by the executive director defending the staff, and I don't look at it as the staff's failures here. I do put the responsibility on the executive director. When there were decisions made to present to the commission about how to reduce the project from the ultimate build to the smaller project we ended up with, those were ultimately the executive director's decisions on what to recommend, and I don't blame the commission for following those recommendations. However, it's something to look at, because we've got $50 million potential price tag to fix that. Something needs to be done. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Was there anybody that wanted to speak that didn't fill out a yellow card on this item? Seeing none? Or am I seeing one?
I'm a resident of Corona. I said goodbye to Michelle this morning, my Michelle, at 5:30. She used to leave at 6:30. So before this project was done, there were many, many, many promises made about this project, and none of them were kept. So, we were told, well, this will make your life better, this will make the commute better. It didn't. And, so I've been a frequent critic of this project. I don't see where I was really much proven wrong, in how it was implemented or how it was designed. and the fact that now the line is, well, we can't build our way out of it. Well, you built your way into it, as some people have said before. I think you really do owe it to the people of Corona to try to make it less bad than it is, to try to give us back some of our life, some of our streets, as soon as possible. If these two improvements can do that, then I think you have, you should proceed with all haste, because this is just, I mean, I'm trying to be positive as I can, but literally we have hours and minutes ripped out of our lives every day about this. I mean, and the situation on Green River, between Foothill and the 91 project is just completely obscene. So thank you very much.
Would you mind making sure you fill out one of the cards? Thank you. Okay, so with that, we'll turn it over to the commission, and the first speaker is Corona.
I know that it's spelled out as a fairly fast pace, very aggressive, but if there's any way we can expedite even faster than the prediction, so that it won't take as long. I know because we spent almost longer talking about it than we're going to be doing to work through it. And I realize it's the process, and we still got to go to the next meeting of the full commission. But whatever we can do to expedite it, to make it quicker, so that we can just work with our residents, work with those that are commuters, so that we can hopefully make some fixes on this. And with that, I'd like to make the motion.
Okay. Any other?
Okay, Ms. Banning, I wanted to make the motion.
You made the motion. You just didn't move your fingers.
Still corrected in the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All please vote. That was approved 10-0. And just as a quick comment on that, your comments have not gone unheard. We appreciate your comments and fully understand exactly what is going on out there, and we're doing what we can to move things forward as quickly as possible to try to remedy the indirect consequences of that construction effort. So we look forward to getting some results back from staff as we move forward with the implementation of these options, and we hope that this does what we want it to do, and that's improve your reduce those times that you're sitting there waiting in traffic. So stay tuned. But this is a first good step. That takes us to item number 9. And this is the amendment to the I-15 Express Lanes Project Design Build Service Agreement with Stantec Ames, a joint venture for the 1591 Express Lanes Connector Project. This will be presented by Dave Thomas.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Staff is recommending an amendment to Skanska Ames contract for the I-15 Express Lanes project to perform preliminary engineering, design, and geotechnical work in support of the Interstate 15 State Route 91 Express Lanes Connector project, also known as the 1591 ELC, in the amount of $4,718,800 plus a contingency amount of $471,200 for a total amount of $5,190,000. This item also includes a recommendation to approve an adjustment of $1.5 million to the fiscal year 17-18 budget to increase state revenues and design builder expenditures. The scope of this effort, excuse me, Scope of this effort is to advance the plan overall design build services amendment with Skanska Ames to develop preliminary engineering work and to form the basis for quantity takeoffs and estimates for final design and construction of the 1591 ELC. In other words, this is the preliminary effort to get to the bigger amendment that's coming. This effort also includes further advancement of the design for the East End extension, and I'll show you a map of that in a moment, targeting an earlier benefit for eastbound 91 express lanes and general purpose lane traffic near I-15. So I want to familiarize you a little bit with the overall scope of the 1591 ELC. Everything that you see in color here, both the blue and the red, is basically represents the scope of the ELC project. Normally, you would think it would just be the blue, which is the connector itself, but there's other work that's included in the scope of this project. For example, the area in red that you see north of the connector on I-15 up through the Hidden Valley Parkway interchange is widening to the northbound direction of I-15 on the outside to accommodate this new express lane connector lane as it touches down onto the I-15. So that's a second major component of work. And then thirdly, down at the bottom, you see on eastbound 91, you see some red pavement as well, where we will be extending the fourth general purpose lane that currently drops just west of where that red line starts. We'll be extending that fourth general purpose lane basically to tie into the auxiliary lane right about Promenade there, and that auxiliary lane continues to McKinley and then exits. So we're getting additional capacity on the 91 eastbound. And that improvement actually is twofold, and the reason that it's tied to the express lane connector is that we're currently seeing congestion on eastbound 91 in the express lanes and the general purpose lanes in this area. We expect that with this improvement, we will see better flow of traffic eastbound both in the general purpose lanes and the express lanes at the east end termination of the express lanes. So there's a near-term benefit to this improvement, but we also expect that it could get worse with the express lane connector, the new east to north movement that gets added to the mix, if you will, of the eastbound movements. And therefore, this improvement is necessary as a mitigation for implementing the connector so that we don't make matters worse. So the reason why you see in the agenda report that we're actually proposing to go ahead and include 95% design of this east end extension in this particular item is because we want to get this improvement in place as soon as possible. So if we can get that design ready, by the time we get to our big amendment, which will be coming later, we'll be just about ready to go to construction on implementing this improvement as a first order of work for the overall express lane connector. So I know that was a lot, but hopefully that kind of explains that component and kind of the three major components of the ELC project. So that concludes my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
So anybody on the commission have a question? Okay, Corona?
We can't get that. Back to the picture. What happened to it? There's a little circle just south of the southeast of the extension. What is that circle?
That is there's an existing loop connector from south 15 to east 91. So that just represents that we have to push that loop connector further out and reconstruct the whole loop with that lane addition. So that's part of the scope of that lane addition. We'll be reconstructing that loop ramp in the same location, just further out.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. And you brought it up, but I really want to make sure that it's being attended to, and that is, as you mentioned and alluded to, we have an issue with the express lanes and the general purpose lanes, for that matter, heading eastbound when you're on the 91 and approaching the 15, and it kind of gets eliminated for the traffic in the left two of the toll lanes that wants to then head southbound. Okay, so southbound onto the 15, that frees up, but that one lane on the right-hand side of the two toll lanes is completely bogged down. So what happens? It looks on the map as if the entry point for the new flyover bridge would be between the, right after the existing flyover that goes to the south 15 from the east 91. So now you're already completely gridlocked, and you're going to add another flyover after that point. How is staff looking at that to address that issue so we can get traffic moving, aside from the correction that you're looking at in the general purpose lane, which might help somewhat? It'll help the general purpose, but will it really help the toll lane?
Yeah, so you've hit on exactly what we've been looking at for some time. This is one of actually 4 hotspots. Michael's earlier presentation touched on 2 of those. This is a third one that we've been looking at with our consultants for some time. We've modeled this location. We do expect an improvement in the flow of both the general purpose lane and the express lane eastbound with this improvement. I guess the thought, or what the model seems to be revealing, is that the congestion of the general purpose lanes, as it comes to kind of a bottleneck location, because the number 4 lane drops right at this location, is also affecting the express lanes, and that traffic is not flowing as smoothly as it could. So we think this general purpose lane will serve 2 purposes for both, moving that east end of the project a little bit better. May not solve it 100%, but we think there will be definitely an improvement with this.
Well, I'd hate to see it get worse, because we're adding the flyover and we haven't accommodated for the existing gridlock of traffic. So I'm glad staff is looking at it, and we'll keep our eyes posted on that item as well. Do we have, let's see, is that, we have a motion? Oh, my apologies. We have a public speaker. Matt Woody, you are up. Okay, he's declining. Was there anybody else that wished to speak on this item that hadn't filled out a yellow card yet? Seeing none, close the public comment section. Any other commissioners have any other comments? Somebody would like to make a motion? A second? Please vote. That's approved, 9-0. Item number 10. This is a change order to amend the I-15 Express Lanes Project Design Build Contract with Skanska Ames, a joint venture for the fiber optic communication network connection to the Regional Operations Center. That's a tongue twister. That's going to be presented by John Tarasio from Bechtel Project Management.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Berkson and committee members. My name is John Tarasio. I am the project manager for the toll building program on the I-15 Express Lanes project. I'm going to be presenting a PowerPoint today. The item before you is to approve change order number 7 for the I-15 Express Lanes project to the design build contract for the connection of the fiber optic communications network to the Regional Operations Center, or as we refer to it as the ROC. As an overview in this presentation, I will cover some of the key dates related to this item, background information, location map and scope, the next steps required, and our staff recommendations. The following are some of the key dates related to this item. The first being in November of 2016 commission meeting, which approved the submission of purchase offer for the rock building at the 291 Corporate Terrace Circle location in Corona. The second is April 2017 commission meeting, which approved the award of the I-15 Express Lanes design build contract. And the third is April 26, 2017, which is the date when staff finalized the purchase of the rock building itself. The I-15 Express Lanes requires a fiber optic communication network in order to operate the toll collection system. The fiber optic network can be defined in two general sections. The first is the mainline communication network. This is required to connect all of the toll points within the I-15 Express Lane limits itself. This network generally runs along the I-15 corridor within its limits. This scope of the communication network was included as part of the I-15 Express Lanes design build contract. The second section is the mainline communication network connection to the rock itself. This is required to monitor and control the I-15 Express Lanes from the rock facility. This communication network was always considered as part of the overall Express Lanes project, but it was not included as part of the design build contract scope due to the timing of the rock building purchase. This work was deferred. It was decided to defer until the rock building location could be finalized and the overall scope could be quantified. So the next slide here is a location map, which gives you a general idea of the overall fiber optic network in concept and the division between the original design build scope and the new portion that's going to the rock. The green portion on the screen would be the original design build scope that runs along the I-15 corridor, and then the red that comes from the interchange over to the rock facility would be the subject of the new scope of this item. Following the purchase of the rock building, staff was able to quantify the actual scope required for the remaining fiber optic connection to the rock. The scope was finalized and staff entered into negotiations with the design build contractor to include the scope in the overall design build contract. This resulted in change order number 7 for a negotiated amount of $421,065. In addition, considerations are needed related to RCTC's fiscal year budget now that the scope and price has been finalized. The expenditure for this fiber optic network connection to the rock was always included as part of the scope and was also included in the overall project cost estimate, but it was not included in the fiscal year 17-18 budget since the scope had not been finalized at the time the budget was developed. And finally, staff's recommendation can be summarized into 3 primary items. So the first being the approval of change order number 7 to the I-15 ELP design build contract for the negotiated amount of $421,065 with a contingency amount of $42,000 with a total not to exceed amount of $463,065. Secondly, recommendation for the approval of the chair or the executive director to execute this change order on behalf of the commission. And third, the approval of an adjustment of $100,000 for the fiscal year 17 and 18 budget. And that concludes my presentation if you have any questions.
Thank you. Any commissioners have questions?
No question. I'll move the item.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Menifee.
Okay, so we saw that the funding, this funding is coming. It's already been budgeted, correct?
So it's in the. So we took. It's included in the overall estimate. It was included in. It was not included in the 17-18 budget. So we're putting $100,000 into as an adjustment to this year's budget, and the remainder is included in the following year's fiscal year budget. It's already included in what's going to be submitted for approval.
And just, I know this cement's already probably been laid, but can surplus funds be used to pay for this little chunk of money?
Michael?
This original connection, as John mentioned, has been part of the overall project cost estimate. We financed the I-15 project with this project cost included. In fact, we financed to a slightly higher amount, so we actually came in lower than what our expectation was. So no toll surplus is needed for this. It's already been accounted for in our overall project financing. We just needed the change order approved and it budgeted.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? We have a motion and a second, so please vote. That is approved, 9-0. Brings us to item number 11. This is the proposed Metrolink budget for fiscal year 2018/2019. Will be presented by Sheldon Peterson.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. I'll go through a real Cliff Notes version of this report. We have the Metrolink CEO and CFO coming into the May Commission meeting, so they'll be able to go into a lot more detail and cover what Metrolink is up to these days. Basically, just wanted to cover the financials. RCTC share for the Metrolink budget coming up will be roughly $30 million. Of that, $20 million will be operations, $10 million will be for capital projects. This is an increase over prior year, but we're looking to make sure we can get our funding plan ready to go to make sure we can accommodate the increases and make sure that the projects will be able to move forward. One of the key things on the capital projects, if for some reason some of the other member agencies are not going to be able to fund their full shares, RCTC share will be lowered to go ahead and match the partner agencies for those funds. So just to make it quick and simple, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? Comments? Maybe? Ms. Franklin?
I just wanted to say, as a member of the Metrolink board, that we are very concerned as RCTC members to make sure that they stay on track with the spending as well as accountability for safety and reliability. So we're not thrilled with the budget, but we are trying to make sure that things are done that we don't exceed anything that's not necessary. And with that, I would move the item.
And Corona?
I just want to thank you, Sheldon, and Debbie, and all those that are active on Metrolink. Metrolink's a piece of the big picture when we talk about the 91 and the comments of not building our way out of. This is one of the elements that we have to keep supporting because it's pulling drivers off the 91. And so we have to continue to support it. And I appreciate your comments, Deb, because we want to make sure that we're prudent and that what was done, and I know, having worked with you, Sheldon, that you do let us know when there's things that are questionable, and I have confidence that you'll continue with that. I'll second the motion.
And any other comments? And I'll just make a quick comment as I'm one of the alternates on Metrolink. I know that we're watching. We've experienced a little bit of ridership decline, possibly due to the Gold Line extension that has hurt us. The Paris Valley line that had the subsidy program in place, that's been successful, and we're looking at furthering that type of scenario in other areas of the Metrolink service territory. So we're watching the budget, and yeah, it's at the point where we're critical of it, of course, and we're going to really be pressing this year to see how we turn things around over there. So we're very apt to get this done right. And we've got a motion and a second, and please go ahead and vote. That was approved, 9-0. And we are on item number 12 now. This is the agreement for Freeway Service Patrol tow truck service being brought to us by Brian Kunanen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioners.
The item before you is for the award of freeway service patrol towing contracts. Two are existing beats along the 91 from the OC line to a little bit past the 15. And the next three are very exciting because they are entirely new beats for the program and will expand coverage into southern Riverside County. And we can all thank SB1 for the additional funding stream that makes that possible. While we've steadily and responsibly grown the FSP footprint over time, this unprecedented windfall of funds for FSP will allow us to expand the program by nearly 40 centerline miles and add 6 more trucks to the program. The RFP was released in January, and we received bids from 2 operators, Quality Roadside Service out of Riverside, bid on 1 of the 91 beats, and Coastal Pride Towing based in San Diego on all 5 of the beats. An evaluation committee comprised of CHP, SBCTA, and commission staff evaluated each proposal in accordance with evaluation criteria set forth in the RFP, and based on the evaluation committee's assessment, Coastal Pride Towing was determined to be the most qualified firm to perform the work outlined in the scope of services for all 5 beats. Coastal Pride is currently an operator in very good standing with Sandag and has provided service in San Diego since 2012. As a result of the evaluation committee's assessment of the written proposals and interview, the evaluation committee recommends contract awards for FSP tow truck services to Coastal Pride as outlined in the staff recommendation. This completes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions for staff? I have a quick question. I know in the past when we've issued these, had the RFPs go out, we've had very limited success with getting applicants to bid on these, and you said there's only been 2 on this one. So can you explain the process of what we might have done differently this time to try to attract more of these operators to bid on our projects?
Yeah, so if you recall at the last one, we actually only received 1 bid, and we advised that we would do some enhanced outreach to local tow operators. And we reached out to 40 local tow operators to try to get an in-person meeting with them, just let them know about the program, try to dispel any misconceptions that they have, and we found there were quite a few. So we did end up meeting with 13 of them in Riverside County and in some in San Diego County. And unfortunately, despite all those efforts ahead of this RFP, between the 13 that we met, only 1 actually bid on the proposal. So moving forward, we're going to continue to do enhanced outreach. In fact, this summer, we're going to be working with SBCTA to put on a workshop because one of the themes that we heard either in our county or in their county is it may be a little intimidating putting together a proposal. Some of these are very small tow companies, so we're going to be putting on a workshop this summer to help address that, as well as dispel some of the misconceptions that we heard during our meetings with the firms.
And that's kind of where I was going to go to this. What did you learn from these 13 interviews or 13 get-togethers?
Yeah,
what kinds of things are the problems, and how can we help these businesses to provide the services to do a legitimate proposal?
I think the ongoing outreach, some of the misconceptions that we heard that it is low bid, it is not a low bid. Same operators all the time was another big one, and that's not true. We've had a variety of operators throughout the years. Some were that the trucks were exclusive to the program, and I think they might be confusing it with how some of the other counties run their program. In our program, you can actually use it it's dedicated to FSP during service hours. Outside of the program, you can use it for your commercial side of your business if you so choose. One of the misconceptions they had is somewhat true in that CHP is a little bit harder. They're a little bit harder only if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. So in that respect, that part is a little bit true. But otherwise, I think it's just ongoing outreach, making sure that we address some of these rumors, misconceptions, and like what we're doing with this workshop, just trying to help people make it easier for them to apply, because it sounds like there's little intimidation factor for the smaller tow companies anyways.
Well, we certainly want to reach out to as many as we can, and it sounds like you guys have done just that with 13 positive connections. Hopefully we can reinvent the application, so to speak, to make it easier for these types of businesses to apply. Let's see, we have Menifee.
Thank you. Just a comment regarding SB1 funds and looking at long-term contracts. If we've got SB1 funds that we could earmark for a 3-year contract, that might be the good way to go, considering these funds may not be with us after the next election. So I'm looking forward to seeing that option out there. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, do we have any other comments? Okay, somebody want to propose a motion? Please go ahead and vote. And that was approved, 9-0. Brings us to commissioners and staff report. Any?
Going us off over.
Corona's not first? Okay, Menifee.
If anybody doesn't have anything to do, or you have communities or groups in your community that want to do volunteer work, City of Menifee is again doing what we call Menifee Better Together in our community, where we'll be working on 2 areas within the city to help out with cleaning up areas in some of our senior communities and on our fringe areas that need help in getting areas cleaned up and painted and everything else. So we had about 700 volunteers last year. We're looking to duplicate that this year. So if you have any groups or folks in your community looking to do volunteer work, have them come on over and we'll be able to put them to work on Saturday, this Saturday at 7:30. Thank you.
Very good. Nobody on that side? Do you have any comments?
Final comment. Commissioners, thank you very much. Today was an important meeting. I thank you very much for your input and your guidance. We've been working towards some solutions here for a number of months, and as always, your RCTC staff will move as quickly as we possibly can, being responsible with the taxpayers' money and trying to get these improvements out there as quickly as we possibly can. I also think that this is going to be a challenging year for this committee as we continue to face the increasing congestion throughout the county, as we develop our next 10-year delivery plan, and address SB1, whether it is an ongoing funding source or whether it is not. It plays a very, very important role in all that we're doing here at the Commission. So thank you very much.
And with that, we thank all of you for your time and joining us for this meeting. Our next meeting will be on Monday, June 25th, 1:30 here, same location. And with that, we will adjourn at 3:13.